Hello and welcome to Into the Massiverse. This is episode 14, the penultimate in our initial wave of recordings, where we are going to be discussing House of Earth and Blood, the first novel in Sarah J Maas's Crescent City series. Now we have blitzed our way through all of Throne of Glass and the ACOTAR books up to date. So we are now shifting onto Sarah's third and currently also being released series, Crescent City, the only series that is not named after the title of the first book. The series title actually comes from a nickname given to the main setting of the books. The city of Lunathion is colloquially known as the Crescent City within these books. Now, there have been lots of elements that I have purposefully glossed over or only slightly mentioned during previous books because they are referenced and become quite important during these books. So here is where I will take the opportunity to expand upon the links, I'm going to use the word links, made in previous books to connect elements of the Massiverse that become apparent as we read Crescent City novels. So let's dive in. We've got 13 books worth of other content to link back to within the broader Massiverse. And there is a lot to get through in this book and book 2 in the Crescent City series. And depending on when you're watching these videos, the others that come. So let's get started and begin our discussion of A House of Earth and Blood, the first book in Sarah J Maas's Crescent City series. Now, these books are chunky and dense, so I'm going to basically talk through the plot, giving you as much detail as I can without, boring you to death. The world building, particularly in book 1, is incredibly dense. So what I will try to do is build the world as I talk through the plot, rather than give you just a ton of exposition at the beginning like the book kind of does, because that's a lot. Now, this series follows a new main character called Bryce Quinlan. And in the first part of this story, very much like Akasif, House of Earth and Blood is split in 2 parts, but they aren't given titles or names like the sections in A Court of Silver Flames are. Part 1 of this book focuses on Bryce at age 23. She is half Fae, a concept we're familiar with because characters like Selena Sardothian are demi-Fae. This is very much the same thing, half human, half Fae, but given a slightly different name in this world. And she works at Griffin Antiques. The shop she works in is located in the old square of Lunathion and is owned by an enchantress called Jezebel. Bryce's job is mainly to watch the door, act like a receptionist, and protect the secret archives. Basically a super hush-hush library that sits below the shop. And she spends most of her days there working in the storefront alongside a fire sprite called Lehaba. The book starts and they are chatting away at work when Bryce's best friend, Danica, walks into the store. Now, Danica is the granddaughter of the werewolf prime. Don't worry, an explanation will come later. And she is the alpha of the werewolf pack of devils. The 2 of them are absolute besties. They literally are flatmates, housemates, and they have been best friends for a really long time at this point. Recently, the 2 of them have gone out on a night out, been on the booze, and got matching tattoos, both of which say a phrase that is very closely associated with Danica. It's something she received when she visited the Oracle. And their tattoos say, "Through love, all is possible." And Bryce's is in an ancient script Danica found and said looked really awesome. So they are the kind of friends that get matching tattoos. They're that close. They are basically sisters. Danica comes into the store and she shares the news that Philip Briggs has been released from prison on a technicality. Danica and her pack of werewolves kind of act as part of the police force in Lunathion, and her pack of werewolves arrested Philip Briggs, who was a known rebel leader who was trying to set off a bomb in a nightclub. He is a part of this rebellion. Humans v Vanir. The Vanir being magical creatures on Midgard, the planet we're talking about. It's an umbrella term for fae, werewolves, and the eclectic mix of magical creatures that live on the planet of Midgard. In other parts of the world, humans and Vanir are at war with each other. And Philip Briggs was supposedly going to set off this bomb in the hopes of inciting rebellion and war here in Lunathion, which is very much seen as a bastion of co-living and acceptance of all kinds of people. Danica is planning to go and meet Mika, the Archangel Governor of Crescent City, and wider Valbara, the region they live in, because she wants to complain about what she sees as a total miscarriage of justice. While Mika runs their city as governor, he's also the head of the central business district. Lunathion, the Crescent City, is split into 7 different sections, each of which tends to house magical creatures of a certain kind. While Mika, who's in charge of the city as a whole and the wider region, very much has his seat in the central business district. You have an area called Moonwood, which is ruled over by the Prime of Werewolves, Danica's grandfather. You have the Autumn King of the Fae, who is situated in an area called Five Roses, but it gets called Fyro in the books. You have the Bone Quarter south of the curved river that runs through the city, hence why it's called the Crescent City, that is run by someone called the Underking. And the river is very much a literal passing over from this world into the afterlife. You have an area known as the Meat Market, which the Viper Queen rules. The old square where Bryce works, that is ruled over by the Oracle, the one who gave this phrase and prophecy to Danica about how through love all is possible. And you have the River Queen, whose dominion is underneath the water of the Istros River that runs through the city. The 7th district, the Asphodel Meadows, is considered the human district, and it has no ruler and no real representation in the local politics of the city. At this point in the narrative, Bryce has been instructed by Jezebel to try and locate an artifact called Luna's Horn, an ancient Fey relic that has very recently been stolen from Luna's temple during a power outage near the temple. Within this world, Vanir can perform an act called the Drop, which essentially allows them to become immortal and live far longer than they would if they didn't. It's both a physical and spiritual descent into power, and at whatever age you perform the drop, you stay that age until the time you die. So both Danica and Bryce have yet to perform this act, the drop. The two of them have discussed it and they've decided the best age to do it's probably about 27. If you're going to stay one age forever, 27's where it's at. When they do this, each of them will come into their full magical power and their aging will slow down significantly. And it is something the two of them plan to do together. You must have a partner to anchor you when you perform this drop. Right now, Bryce is a half-human who has not performed the drop, so she is seen as very weak and vulnerable. Her only protection against other creatures is an amulet her boss Jezebel lets her wear that protects her from magical influences. Now, Bryce's mother is Ember Quinlan, a human who lives outside of the city, who raised her with Bryce's stepfather, Randall, a very famous military sharpshooter. At the beginning of the books, all we know is that her father is obviously Fae, but the truth is, he's an incredibly, incredibly important Fae, and Bryce has a half-brother who is completely Fae, the Prince Rune Danon. Rune Danon, Prince of the Valbaran Fae. The girls who get it, get it. Danica's pack pretty much act as her family, and that includes Connor, who is her second in command, and 5 others. Bryce and Connor's younger brother Ethan are considered honorary members of the pack. They are invited to everything, they join in, and are very much treated like the group is 9 people big. Danica and Bryce met at university and were roommates. They have a pair of friends called Fury and Jupiter, who they met at university at the same time. Fury is this assassin or mercenary. We never really get full confirmation of that. And she is of unknown magical heritage, where Juniper is a faun and ballet dancer. So we have a little girl squad of 4, And we have this pack of werewolves family that Danica and Bryce sit within. They've basically got like really good groups of friends surrounding them, even though both of their families aren't 100% great all of the time. The two of them leave work. Danica has a little bit of a like verbal spat with Lehaber. And you very much get the impression it's Danica not being possessive of Bryce, but very much being like, you're her work friend. I'm her actual best friend. And Danica just comes in and uses the amenities in the office. She's all gungy. She has a shower. She changes clothes. And she leaves her toot in the office. She has this big magical sword and a jacket she's wearing. She just leaves them there because why not? Very much showing us straight from the off that for Danica and Bryce, the relationship is very much mi casa es tu casa. You and I are one and the same. The things that belong to each of us belong to the other. Danica is very comfortable in Bryce's spaces and vice versa. They're a unit. They are a pair. On a total whim, the two of them are walking home and decide to stop by the Heart Gate in the Old Square. This is how we find out that every district in Lunathian has a special gate inside of it. And that if you use a tiny little drop of magic, at one gate, you can talk to someone at another. They literally act as like landline phones. So you can go to one and start chatting to someone at the other gate as long as you just put a little teeny tiny drop of magic in it. And a plaque by each gate reads that the power shall always belong to those who give their lives to the city, giving us an idea of the ethos and setup of Lunathian as a space. To commiserate the fact that Briggs has just been released, the pack of devils decide to spend the evening in Bryce and Danica's flat. They're going to have like a pizza party and chill. Bryce, however, is going on a date with a guy called Reed Redner, who is the human heir to this big tech conglomerate who infused magic with technology called Redner Industries. Danica's met Reed doing part-time security for his business and introduced Bryce and Reed to each other. On her way out of the flat, Connor approaches Bryce and we get a great deal of flanter. And he's like, Bryce, come on, we've been dancing around it for ages. Don't bother going out on dates with random men. Date me. Be my girlfriend. I know you're into me. I'm into you. And Connor's a real sweetie and he's just very forthright and honest about it. Bryce is like, Connor, I'm about to go on a date. Let's not. So she gets all dolled up. She is heading out and we see her in the doorway, basically looking around and seeing the pack of devils just super chill, super happy all together. And instead of saying goodbye to her, Danica says, hey, light it up, bitch. To which Bryce laughs and says, light it up, asshole, and heads away for her night out. This is obviously some little kind of quippy phrase between Bryce and Danica that no one else really understands or gets, but they know it's their thing. They say it to each other often. When Reed arrives to their dinner late, Bryce just dumps him flat out. Okay, we have a woman with standards here. And as she leaves this restaurant, she texts Connor and says, do you know what? Let's make a go of it. You and me. I'm open to it. I'm now no longer dating someone else. Let's give it a go, Connor. Which, as you can imagine, has Connor absolutely buzzing. What brilliant news for him. He's finally going to get to be with Bryce, a girl he's clearly been interested in for a very long time. Now, instead of going home, Bryce is obviously annoyed about how her night with Reed has gone, so she meets up with Fury and Juniper, and they go clubbing. I mean, girls all dressed up, she might as well go out. They're out in this nightclub, they're drinking, doing drugs, and Bryce bumps into a very handsome stranger, has a very good time, which there is nothing wrong with, by the way, because she's not like got a boyfriend ATM. And as she's dancing and having a good time, she's texting Danica, keeping her updated on how the night's gone. And obviously Danica's like, well, I'm here with Connor and I know what you've just told him. Ah, exciting. Have fun, babe. She's basically having two separate text convos with Connor and Danica. And the last message Connor sends her is like, just let me know when you get home safe. Like, that's all we care about. It's the kind of normal combos you have with your mates. just texting back and forth. But Bryce is out. She's having a good time. She's feeling herself. And she stumbles home drunk and high to find the front door of their apartment smashed in. So Bryce comes into the apartment and finds every single member of the pack of devils dead. She finds Connor out in the lounge, and that first thought is, oh my God, where's Danica? What's happened to Danica? And when she goes into the bedroom, oh my God, I'm going to cry. I am actually going to cry. She finds Danica torn to pieces. They're all torn to pieces. Oh! And Bryce sees a demon escaping, so she starts chasing it. And for someone who is only like half Fae, she gives it a run for its money. She jumps out of a window. She's legging it down the street. Girl was literally incapable of walking in a straight line all of 30 seconds ago, but adrenaline's a powerful drug. When she catches up to the demon, it's attacked and taken down an angel. So she hits it and fights it. She's got no weapons on her at all. It is literally just bare knuckle feral anger because everyone she loves has just been brutally murdered. And the creature kind of gouges her arm and her leg, but she keeps fighting. And the demon runs away, but she stays to help and protect the angel that's been attacked because even on her worst day, Bryce Quinlan cares about other people. When they're found there, Bryce basically gets taken in by the Lunathian police and is plonked into a holding cell. After everything that's just happened to her, no one really knows what to do with her. And she is being watched through like two-way police glass by two angels. Isaiah is the leader of the 33rd Legion, and Micah's Triari, a group of elite warriors. Hun Athalar, the second angel, is Isaiah's kind of unofficial right-hand man, and he is Micah's personal assassin. He has a really rare and powerful, like, lightning magic, and his nickname around Lunathian, but all the way around Midgard really, is the Umbra Mortis. He is known as the Shadow of Death. These two angels that are watching Bryce through the glass took part in a rebellion about 200 years ago that was led by an archangel called Shahar. They fought against the Asteri, who are the 6 godlike rulers of Midgard as a world. They tried to overthrow the very hierarchical structure of Midgard that has the Asteri up at the top and subjugates people like humans down at the bottom. When the rebellion 200 years ago failed, those who'd taken part were known as the Fallen. So Isaiah and Hunt are considered fallen angels. They've been marked with these halo tattoos that limit their use of magic, and they are branded with SPQR slave tattoos. They're trying to figure out what on earth has just happened and how this half-fae woman is involved. Then Rune Dannon, the prince of the Valbaran Fae, turns up at the police station. He claims to be a distant kind of cousin to Bryce, and they immediately have to let her go because Rune's father, the Autumn King, is literally one of the people in charge of the city. I'm not going to say they've got diplomatic immunity, but when Rune speaks, people definitely listen. He walks in and basically says, yeah, I need to get Bryce. I need to take her home right now. And the question is immediately raised, why does Rune Dannon care about Bryce Quinlan? This is, however, because she is secretly his sister. Rune also has a lot of kudos within the world of Midgard, because not only is he the prince of the Valbaran Fae and the son of the Autumn King, he is starborn. He has an incredibly rare form of Fae magic. And on top of this, he can also control shadows and mist and is rumored to be telepathic. All powers we've seen and heard of before. Not necessarily the starborn bit, although we have met a character when we see what this starborn magic is, whose powers work very similarly. I'll go Larian. But Rune's powers, darkness, shadows, telepathy. Who do we know? Maybe from these books, whose magic is all dark and Edgy. Hmm. Hmm. Call it straight from the off. It's very, very resand coded. And the physical description of Rune, whilst tattooed, pierced, half head shaved, edgy punk rock king, it's physically very similar to Reese in terms of his height, his skin, his face. Very, very interesting. And I'm going to tell you right now, Rune is one of my absolute favorite men in all of the massacres. Just letting you know this now, because my coverage of Rune will very much be through the lens of, oh my God, I love him so much. Now, because Rune's walked in, Isaiah has no choice but to let Bryce go and leave with him. Meanwhile, Briggs, recently released from prison, is arrested for summoning the demon that killed the pack of devils who, had arrested him and sent him to prison previously. Days after this, as this part of the book comes to an end, Bryce gets a message from Ethan, Connor's younger brother, one of Bryce's best friends, informing her that she is not invited to the funeral. She is not welcome to come and take part in the funerary rites for the pack of devils. And so, can you imagine? This is Bryce's found family. They are all gone in one fell swoop. The only other person who is connected to the pack of devils is Ethan, and he sends her that message. And we find out that the attack has obviously gained a lot of coverage in the news, and people have access to the texts from Danica Connor's last night alive. And so, from their POV and within werewolf culture, when Bryce said, "Yep, Connor, let's make a go of it," she became his. And so, by getting with someone in a nightclub bathroom on the same night, she'd essentially cheated on Connor. Now, most sensible people can see this is ridiculous, but from someone like Ethan's point of view, who's just lost his brother, he sees Bryce's behavior on the final night alive as kind of unforgivable. While the people he cares about died, he was out getting high, getting drunk, getting with a guy in a club. And so she is, the only word for it is really, really horrifically slut shamed by basically everyone in the city and disowned by the friends she thought she had. So she's lost Danica and Connor and the best things in her life, and everyone just punishes her for it. Oh, it's awful. Reading this for the first time, I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. It's going to happen because it's in the synopsis of the book that Danica and all that lot get killed in part one, but gee whiz, it's a rough ride. It really, really is. And so ends part one of House of Earth and Blood.